This video is made to be watched either with or without sound. In the last video, we looked at Hezekiah and Sennacherib, and we noticed how the events in the Bible can be synchronized to events recorded on clay tablets from ancient Mesopotamia, providing a fuller picture of these historical events. We noticed that Sennacherib's invasion of Judah during the 14th year of Hezekiah was in Sargon's 10th year as king of Assyria, and that Sennacherib, who led the invasion, was actually the crown prince at the time. This was in the year 712-711 BC. Then we saw that Sennacherib going against Hezekiah as recorded on the Sennacherib prism was 11 years later in Hezekiah's 25th year, or 701-700 BC. This second military campaign against Hezekiah in Sennacherib's 4th year is not recorded in the Bible. It was between these two invasions that Hezekiah closed the upper outlet of the waters of the Gihon Spring and directed the water into the city of David through his famous tunnel. In 681-680 BC, Sennacherib was killed by his own sons in a rebellion after reigning 24 years in Assyria, and another one of his sons, Esarhaddon, reigned in his place. This was the 16th year of Manasseh, king of Judah. The Bible tells us in 2 Chronicles 33:11 that the king of Assyria took Manasseh prisoner to Babylon, but does not specify when this happened during his 55-year reign, nor does it mention the Assyrian king by name. We can speculate that it was probably either Sennacherib or Esarhaddon, since they were the only kings to reign in both Assyria and Babylon during Manasseh's reign. But it's also possible that Esarhaddon's son Bonipal captured Manasseh. Esarhaddon mentions receiving building material for his palace in Nineveh from various kings, including Manasseh, king of Judah. In his 5th year, Esarhaddon ruthlessly killed the king of Sidon and brought his head back to Assyria. In his 7th year, Esarhaddon was defeated in Egypt. Then 3 years later, in his 10th year, he returned to Egypt and captured the royal city Memphis on the 22nd day of the 4th month. Tirhakah, king of Egypt, escaped successfully to the south, but his brother and son were taken prisoner to Assyria. Two years later, in his 12th year, Esarhaddon marched to Egypt again, but on the way he became ill and died on the 10th day of the 8th month. Then Esarhaddon's son Bonipal ascended the throne in Assyria in the 9th month. At the beginning of the next year, another one of Esarhaddon's sons, Shama Sumukin, ascended the throne in Babylon. Shama Sumukin was subject to his brother Bonipal, king of Assyria, and they were hostile towards each other. Shama Sumukin restored worship to the Babylonian patron god Marduk or Bel that had been neglected for the previous 20 years after Sennacherib destroyed Marduk's temple. In the 5th year of Ashurbanipal, king of Assyria, Ashurbanipal captured and plundered the capital city Thebes in Egypt, ending the rule of the Cushite dynasty of kings in Egypt. Then in his 16th year, Ashurbanipal marched against Elam, and in brutal fashion cut off the head of their king and hung it from a pole while he celebrated the victory. In his 17th year, there were hostilities between Assyria and Babylon, but Ashurbanipal defeated and subdued his brother Shama Sumukin, king of Babylon. Then in the 27th year of Ashurbanipal, Manasseh, king of Judah, died, and his son Amon reigned in his place for only 2 years, until his own servants conspired against him and killed him. Then the people of the land made Amon's 8-year-old son Josiah king in his place. Ashurbanipal reigned for 39 years until the 10th year of Josiah, and was succeeded by 2 of his sons that would reign consecutively until the end of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. In the 13th year of Josiah, Jeremiah began his ministry that would last until after the destruction of Jerusalem and the burning of the temple by the Babylonians. Jeremiah chapters 1 through 20 are from the time of Josiah, and this chart shows the chronological order of the rest of the chapters in Jeremiah. There's a link in the description of this video to download and print this chart if you like. That was also the year that there was no king in Babylon, and Nabopolassar, Nebuchadnezzar's father, took the opportunity and became the first king and founder of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Nebuchadnezzar married a daughter of the king of the Medes in an alliance. And then, in the 28th year of Josiah, the Medes and the Babylonians destroyed the city Nineveh, as was graphically foretold by the prophet Nahum, overthrowing the mighty Assyrian Empire. This is where our next series, the Chronology of the Babylonian Exile, begins. If you haven't already, you can download the complete Bible timeline contained in an easy-to-reference spreadsheet, perfect for viewing on your computer, tablet, or phone.